Hello and welcome to my second review for the Doom games. This is Doom 2, which was the sequel to Doom. Doom 2 was released by id Software in 1994. It was only a year after the original Doom was released. It did improve the original Doom in a number of areas. The maps were larger and more varied, and some of the maps had a more, shall we say, a vertical feel to them. There's some of the maps in the game, because you are actually now fighting on Earth rather than a space station, and you're kind of required to go up inside of buildings, and it's just generally it's a more complicated layout. Other than that, there wasn't that many improvements, and there was only one extra gun in the game, which was the super shotgun. Now, if you like the shotgun in Doom, then the super shotgun is your best friend in this. It is a really powerful weapon. It's great not only for cutting down 2 or 3 monsters in one go, but it also dishes out quite sizable damage, which is useful for taking down some of the sort of more medium sized enemies. Also introduced in the game was something called the Megasphere. Now the Megasphere maxes out your health and also your armor, and these are scattered around the game. I wouldn't say they were exactly rare to find, but they are scattered throughout the game. In all, the basic overall design of the game was to make the levels more complicated, to have more traps, and in general to make the game a lot more difficult than the original Doom was. They also introduced a number of new bad guys, which added to make the game more difficult. This is probably where Doom 2 stands out from its predecessor. The first bad guy is a guy called the Heavy Weapon Dude. Now the Heavy Weapon Dude is a guy who runs around with a chain gun, and these guys are really deadly. You've got to be so careful, because they can pick you off and strip you of your your armor and your health in next to no time if you don't take them out. The next was the Hell Knight. Now the Hell Knight was like a trimmed down version of the Barons of Hell from the first game. They differ in colour. They're exactly the same character model, but they just differ in colour, and they're not as tough as the Barons of Hell. But obviously you don't want to come face to face with one of them without a decent weapon, but the super shotgun usually makes short work of them. The next bad guy they introduced was a guy called the Revenant. Now the Revenant is really a pain in the arse. They're not difficult to kill, but they fire a fireball which actually locks onto you. So sometimes strafing simply doesn't work. You have to sort of get out of the way, duck around the corner, and this brings on to the next one here. You can see on the screen, that's a new one called the Pain Elemental. Now I hate the Screaming Skulls, because I just think that they're one of those bad guys you always get in every game, one of those bad guys that's just like I call them like a mobile roadblock. They're not particularly dangerous, they're just a pain in the backside. They slow you down, they get in the way, they consume ammunition, and the Pain Elemental distributes them. So straight away there's another Pain Elemental. It's on my bad list. And also when the Pain Elemental dies, it explodes and it fires out 2 or 3 of these damn skull things as well, which again is a menace. Some of the other bad guys is the Mancubus, which we'll see later on in the review. These are very dangerous. They've got like fireball cannons, twin fireball cannons on each arm. They're not mobile as such, but you don't want to get caught in a crossfire with these guys. And then there's the Arachnotron, which again you'll see later on in the review. I'll point it out when they come along. The Arachnotron is again very dangerous, kind of like the Spider Demon but a smaller version, but instead of being armed with a chain gun, they're armed with a plasma gun, and they're more frequent throughout the game than the Spider Demon was in the first game. And finally there's the Archvile, which lives up to its name. The Archvile is it's hard to describe. It's like a yellow man that's on fire, and he runs around at really fast pace and just raises his arms in the air, and then if you're not careful you just get engulfed in all of this fire, and it takes a huge amount of energy and armour off you. They're reasonably tough to kill, basically because they lock onto you so quickly, and as I say, they can chase you around a level as well. They are one of the fastest moving guys in the game. And aside from that, that was the real difference. But Doom 2 had quite a few really good bits going for it, and here's one of them here. And you can see all of these Hell Knights, are just all of these loads of them, and they're just going to get crushed. This level is actually called the Crusher, and there's just numerous little things like that scattered throughout the game, that just make it more entertaining in terms of variety and in terms of a challenge. You know, the lack of improvements in other areas, you don't really notice it because of the fact that the level design was different, and the level design was a lot better. And you know, with the actual introduction of all of the new bad guys, you do tend to spend a lot of your time trying to hide and not get hit, because it is a lot tougher than the first game. You're going to now see the revenants are going to appear from behind this wall in a moment, and there they are. They're not especially tough, but there's one of those heat-seeking fireballs, and as you can see, you've just got to try and duck out of the way. Like I say, they're not tough, but they pack them fireballs, pack a real big punch, and you don't want to get hit by them. There's a Hell Knight, and like I say, I'm tackling this guy with a super shotgun, and as you can see, he's not particularly hard. And there's a heavy gunner. Again, not particularly tough, but if you allow them to draw a bead on you, they will kill you in next to no time. Speaking of heavy metal, there was a reason why. Oh, just quickly before I say that, there's the Mancubus, and you'll see the Arachnotrons in a minute, but they're the Mancubus. In the game was released in 1994, and actually in the game there is some music that was released sort of in the grunge era with regards to Alice in Chains. They've got like a version of two of their songs, Angry Chair and Them Bones, in the game, and there's a song by Black Sabbath, After All, Pantera, This Love, and Slayer, South of Heaven. And at first I was playing the game, and this was before I knew this, I kept thinking to myself, one of these tunes, it sounds really familiar. I mean, obviously it's done through MIDI, so it's quite heavily disguised, but I could recognise the tune. And I thought, that really does sound like Them Bones by Alice in Chains. And I never thought anything of it at the time. I just didn't really think much to it. And because I actually got this sometime after it was released, bearing in mind that the PlayStation version had a different soundtrack, I actually got this version of the game for the PC quite some time after, so I never put two and two together until I found out when I did some research on the game that's what was in it. Anyway, to sum up, I really do like this game. Do I like it as more than the original Doom? That's a tough one. It's certainly more varied, but to me the original Doom will always be my favourite. Obviously this has got better bad guys and so on and so forth, but it just lacks that first meeting appeal that I had, which I had with the first game. But it's still a very good game. It's still excellent. You know, it's still one of my favourites, and I would highly recommend it. So yeah, thanks